All right, I think we have our quorum. It is 5:15, so we will call this meeting to order. Thank you all for joining us. San Mateo County Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention Commission. Why don't we go ahead and do a roll call? I will start and pass it off to Tony afterwards. Hi, my name is Deborah Telleria. I'm the co-chair. Tony?
Hi, I'm Tony Barrett, co-chair with Deborah. Let's see, Susan, I see you next. Do you want to?
Susan Swope, Commissioner.
This is Monroe LaBuise. I'm a commissioner, and I'll pass it on to Johanna.
Hi, Johanna Rasmussen, Commissioner, and I'll pass it on to Corin.
Hi, it's Karen Huber-Levy, also a Commissioner.
Tag someone else.
Oh, yes, and I'll pass it on to Amaya.
My name is Manori. I am a youth commissioner for San Mateo County, and I'm also the liaison to the JJDPC. Sorry. I guess I can pass it on to Jehan.
Hi, Jahan Clark, San Mateo County Probation, and I will pass it to my partner, Melanie.
Thank you. Melanie Stock. Thank you.
Susan Edisati, Judge. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Hello, everyone.
Rebecca Flores, Vice Chair of Administration.
I'll go. I'm Judith Gable from Acknowledge Alliance.
Southwick?
Southwick Nori, Commissioner.
Victor?
Victor Letch, the third Commissioner.
Aurora, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. Aurora Pena, Supervising Mental Health Clinician for the BHRS team at the YSC. Good to see you all.
Good to see you too. Are there any other guests on the phone that would like to introduce themselves?
I'll introduce myself, Chelsea Bonini. I'm a member of the San Mateo County Commission on Disabilities and liaison to your commission.
Welcome.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ligia Andrade Zúñiga. I'm also a liaison to the Commission on Disabilities, and I'm also a school board member for the San Mateo Union High School District.
Welcome.
Good evening, Chris Rasmussen. I'm with the Mental Health and Substance Abuse Recovery Commission for San Mateo County.
Glad you could join us.
Good evening. My name is Michael Lim, and I'm also from the Mental Health, Substance Abuse, and Recovery Commission.
We have another commissioner on board. Melissa, would you like to introduce yourself? You're on mute.
Hi there. My name's Melissa Wilson. I'm a commissioner.
Welcome. All right. Anyone else? With that, we will move on.
Hi, I'm Mary Lynn Fitton. I'm with the Art of Yoga Project.
Welcome. Glad to have you with us.
Thank you.
Hi.
Okay. Has everybody had a chance to review the agenda? And are there any changes?
No changes.
Hearing no changes, the agenda is approved as distributed. And the approval of the minutes from June 29th. Are there any updates or changes to those?
I hate to do this, but on page 3, under 5A,
bullet number 1, the name change is changing the project name from reducing truancy and framing it in a positive way to increasing attendance and graduation.
Okay, we will make that change. Thank you, Susan. Any other changes? Then with those changes, the minutes of June 29th are approved. There are no oral communications. So we'll move on to updates. Judge Edizati, what's been happening?
All right, good evening, everybody. It's nice to see everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Well, we're still wearing masks in the courtroom, all of us that appear and the court staff, and we're still wearing masks in the government building, as you know, given the COVID variant that's spreading rapidly, the Delta variant. The bulk of our hearings are 300 hearings, at least lately. And so we haven't had that many 602 hearings, but we are still conducting our hearings in both 300 and 602s via Zoom. And some people are still appearing in person. So it's more of the same, at least for now, until we adjust going forward with this pandemic. But as I've said before, Zoom is a good thing, I think, for a lot of our families. It can be very efficient, and especially for the short hearings that we have. We don't expect our families to, get into a car or have a friend drive them and come up to the courthouse when we can dispense with the matter in 5 minutes or more. So Zoom's been a great platform, which we would not have otherwise had it not been for the pandemic. Quite frankly, we've discussed that. So that's where we are right now. I think I counted yesterday, we had 15 youth in the hall. I don't know what the number is today, but I'm sure Melanie knows. So that's really all I have. We're having a meeting in mid-August concerning secure track with probation. As everybody knows, the DJJ is not accepting any more folks effective June 30th of 2021. And it's anticipated that it will close June 30th of 2023. But there's a lot of work to do between now and then, and we'll see what everything looks like in the absence of DJJ and its alternatives that we're going to be creating between now and then. So, any questions?
Judge, it sounds like the number of 602 cases month over month is flat. I didn't hear you say that exactly, but that's my inference. Is that right? It's
been flat for a while, although we have a couple of serious cases that came in June, serious as in homicide. Right. But yes, I would say the bulk of our hearings, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday of this week, my contested hearings are all 300 matters. Right. So in terms of contested matter, but of course, every afternoon we have pretrial conferences, arraignments, dispositions and the like. But the contested matters are primarily 300 cases at this point anyway. That will soon change with the more serious matters that I mentioned. Yeah, it's flat. I would say that's a good way of putting it, Monroe. So.
Thanks.
Which is good. We're not complaining about that, right? So
absolutely,
it's okay. That's a good thing. That's a good thing. So,
Melissa, did you have a question?
Nope.
No. All right. With no other questions, we will go on to the private defender program. Unfortunately, Ron couldn't be with us tonight, but he sent me some notes. You didn't have a specific update for the month, but training for the attorneys on secure track, the realignment from JJJ, the name of that program, is a big focus for them right now as they get ready for youth that maybe otherwise would have gone to JJJ, but would now be assigned to the secure track program. That's about it for him. Probation. Who wants to go first? Melanie, Jahan?
Yeah, I can go first.
Great, thank you.
So we have currently 161 youth who are on supervised probation. So again, that includes 6-month informal contracts, deferred entry of judgment cases, and formal probation cases. And let's see, I can add in that 60, well, no, I don't have my color copy. 65% of the cases are low risk out of the 161 cases. We have 0 youth in placement, which again, I think I mentioned last month, is huge because I never thought I would see this in my career. So I think it just demonstrates that we're doing really great work with our youth and families to prevent removal from the home. We have 10 youth who are receiving AB 12 services. Those are the youth that complete placement and then either return home or go into transitional housing. And so they receive extended foster care services, which is a good thing. We have 5 youth at DJJ. And in the assessment center, we have assessment center investigations unit. We have 64 youth that are going through that unit being processed for either diversion or referrals to the DA's office. And so of those 64 youth, 4 are on a contract, either 90-day or 6-month informal contract that does not go through the court system. And we've had a lot of successful completions in the last, actually since last month, because I think I reported out last month, I think we had roughly 9 youth. No, actually it was the same. We have 14 youth on the electronic monitoring program and 21 DPOs. And I know that the question was asked previously about race and the percentage of youth. The highest percentage is Hispanic, Latino, and of Spanish origin. We continue to do business as usual. We're meeting with our youth and families. All of our POs are back in the office. And so everyone's adjusted, and we have families coming into the office and POs going out into the field. And so I think it's been overall a really nice transition back into the office. Any questions?
I have a quick question. You said that there were 64 referrals that were being processed, some of them to the DA's office. Do we know how many of those DA referrals come from schools by chance?
Yeah, so the 64 youth that are in the, what we would consider the intake unit, assessments or investigations, they are all police referrals. We don't get referrals from school districts. And so most of those cases though are being diverted. We have a low number of cases that are actually being sent to the DA's office.
Thank you.
Sure.
Hi, and then for institutions, we currently have 16 youth in the juvenile hall and 6 youth at the girls camp. We continue to have business as usual. There are still some service providers who have not returned back to in-person sessions, but we're hoping by the time the end of summer comes that we'll resume fully back in person. The youth are about to have summer break for school, so they'll be out until August. And I know our girls camp just had our inspection, so I'll be anxiously waiting to see the report from that. And I know we have our inspection with you guys for the YSC scheduled for next month, I believe. That's it for institutions. Does anyone have any questions? Nope.
I have a quick question. How many girls do we have at the camp from Sonoma County, if any?
I believe there's 1.
1, okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're
nice
welcome.
to see you again too,
You as
Ms.
well.
Clark.
Likewise.
I see that Monroe and Victor have had their hands up for a while.
I think Victor was first.
Thanks, Monroe and Johanna. Melanie, just really quick, you said that Latino or Hispanic population is the highest. Do we have an actual percentage what that actual number is?
I'm so sorry. I'm having a hard time hearing you, Victor.
Hey, Melanie, the question was what percent Hispanic or Latinx?
Oh yeah, so that was 65%. of the youth that we serve. Caucasian 12%, and then everything goes down from 8% to 1%.
Thank you.
And while I have the floor, I had a question also. You mentioned 65% of cases being low risk, and sorry if you've defined that before in a previous meeting, but I forgot. What does that mean, and what would the 35% be?
So 65% of the youth that we have on either informal probation or formal probation, 65% of those cases are low risk, meaning we don't need to see them every week, that there are low risk factors, whether it be drug and alcohol, school attendance, familial issues. So we see that as being a positive thing because we don't need to see those youth as often as our more intensive cases, which is 9% of the 161 clients that we serve.
And 65 plus 9 is 74. So like there's another 26% that are like in between.
Moderate, yeah. In the middle. Mm-hmm.
Got it. Okay. All right. Thanks. That helps. I understand.
Thank you.
And I apologize, Paul, and the rest of you. I mistakenly said there's one Sonoma youth at girls camp. It's actually 2. So thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Ms. Clark.
You're welcome.
What was the total again for the girls' camp? I'm sorry.
6.
6.
Are there any other questions for probation?
Yeah, I have a little follow-up question to those risk factors. You said that 65% of them are informal, like low risk factors that have to deal with a lot of trauma and addiction. Is part of their that probation to are we making sure that they're attending or receiving the services that they were supposed to under their maybe their probation guidelines or rules or things like that?
Yes, so our standard conditions of probation include counseling, attend school, curfew. So for low risk youth, what studies show is that we don't want to have a lot of involvement with those youth because it might be one particular issue that brought them into the system. And so let's say, for instance, a lot of low risk youth will end up having a drug and alcohol issue, or maybe they go into a store and steal something and then they come to us. So we don't want to give them a ton of services or a ton of supervision because then we end up impacting them and not necessarily in a positive way. So we know that with low risk youth, they tend to participate and then complete their conditions and terminate, whether it's informal for 6 months or formal probation. So
yeah, thank you. And that's what I meant to, I was trying to find the actual word, conditions of their probation. And I'm sure that would have been maybe attending counseling, drug and alcohol counseling, like as you used in your hypothetical.
Yeah, if it applies to the case, it has to be, the underlying offense would have to have some type of drug and alcohol issue.
Yeah, and we would see them through the entire program before we discharge them, just to be sure that they receive the services that. Yes. Okay. Thank you so much. That's awesome. Awesome work.
No problem.
Melanie, just a quick follow-up on that question. Whether they receive services, whether they receive.
And Victor, I'm so sorry I can't hear you for some reason. Monroe, can you help me out? I don't know why I can't hear Victor.
He's still going. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, my question is, Monroe, is whether they receive services or not for the low risk population, they're still getting screened, like for trauma and mental health, correct? And ACEs, like all that's still happening, correct?
Did you hear that, Melanie?
No, I don't know why I can't hear Victor.
The question was whether or not they're low risk or high risk. They're still getting screened at some point and examining those different factors.
Yes, at the onset of the case, when a case comes through the Assessment Center Investigations Unit, we do a pre-risk tool. So if a youth comes up high risk, we know that this youth is going to be a youth who requires more services and supervision. And then we end up doing a full, they're called, oh my gosh, individual determinations now instead of assessments. I think that's the word that we're, or the term that we're using. Is that correct, Johan? Okay, good. So, so we know that once we do that full assessment, we're going to get a better idea of what the real risk factors are and what the protective factors are. So we want to also focus on the protective factors, which could be, you know, a good support system at home. We want to really support the family and being able to help this youth through whatever challenges they're going through. So I hope that answered your question. Yeah. Okay. And Monroe, you had another question?
Nope, I'm just doing translation.
Okay. All right. Thank you for translating. I appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Victor, did you have another question?
No. Is my hand up?
Just briefly. All right. Moving on. Thank you, Probation. County Office of Education. I know Janae couldn't be with us, but there is someone else here who is going to give us an update.
Hi, I'm Karen Newsty. I'm one of the executive directors at the County Office of Education. I work closely with Janae, and she's just not feeling well today, so she's not able to be here. To be honest, I really am just here to kind of listen and learn. I'm happy to answer questions. You know, we just finished up our extended school year. I work closely with the court and community schools. We're kind of full throttle ahead on a new community school model, which Janae might have talked a little bit about. And, you know, we're kind of in that quiet space where teachers are trying to, you know, get a little bit of a break before we kind of ramp things back up for the fall. So that's where we are right now. But I'm happy to answer any questions.
Would you mind talking a little bit more about the community school model? It would be helpful for us to hear it.
Sure. Yeah. So our community school model, you know, we started doing some work. The California Department of Education and current governor, you know, was very invested in community schools. And last year we started doing some work. We applied for a grant. Unfortunately, we did not get the grant. There was a huge amount of people that applied for grant funding to kind of rethink our model a little bit. And so, you know, in the course of the pandemic, one of the pieces that we know in working with all of our school districts is that mental health is, you know, first and foremost for really all students. Teenagers have been hugely impacted by COVID and being at home. And, you know, we sort of know all the, you know, there's many data points that show the escalation in mental health issues in teens. And so we decided in working with our school districts, our partner school districts, to kind of rethink the model a little bit and focus, have the community school have a focus around mental health and, you know, really encourage a trauma-informed environment where students could come to us for some amount of time and hopefully return to their home district. So the idea is, you know, we want them on the earlier side of their problems rather than having them escalate into either self-harm or other behaviors that sometimes, you know, land them in juvenile hall or they stop attending school. So we're talking about a little bit more on the further end of the extreme with the mental health services that we will be providing. We're not a residential treatment. You know, we don't have that ability, we don't have that facility, but we are partnering with an agency through some of the funding that the federal government has offered to kind of rethink and relearn about what the classroom environment really needs to look like to support students that are school averse. And so we are starting with a small population, probably 10 or so kids right now. We believe that when the students come back, you know, our school districts will be really working with us closely in August and September and October as they start to get to know the students again. And we see where there's problems, especially like for kids that, refuse to go back to school. There's going to be that. There's going to be all kinds of issues. So we're kind of preparing for that.
So
go ahead.
To clarify, so we're not just talking about Gateway here, being more mental health focused. We're actually talking about the schools across all districts in the county. Is that?
Well, there's guidelines in all of the newer laws around social emotional health for students. So I guess to answer that, we will all be seeing a lot more around social emotional health and learning and supporting kids, whether that's districts hiring more counselors, whether it's more teachers going to training. There's a huge push in California and nationally to, we've always sort of had the focus around academics with some counseling, and they're getting equal play now in the K-12 world. And so as far as, just supporting kids, it's going to start to look a bit different in the K-12 systems. So yes, and our community school will have even more of a focus.
So will there be like a therapist on site at Gateway, for example?
Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I see Victor with his hand up. I'll continue to be his translator.
Well, hopefully, Karen, can you hear me, Karen?
I
or
can.
no?
I can.
Okay, great. Whew. So these 10 students, that's like a pilot program, I'm assuming. And then if it's successful, then we can expect it to be distributed countywide. Can you or do you have any of those kinds of measures that you're going to be looking at to determine whether the program was a success and whether it's going to be, distributed countywide? Is there a way you can give us kind of a preview of that?
Mhm.
And is there a name for the pilot program?
Well, it's we don't have a name for the actual school yet. We want to work with the students. It may continue to be called Gateway. We might have a different title for the school. So there's some conversation about that. We can go up to 60, potentially 80 students this year. So we don't think it will stay just the 10 students this fall. We really hope and encourage our districts to partner with us closely and get the students to us that need the services right away. So we hope to end the school year with many more students, and our metrics are actually quite substantial and part of what's called the local control accountability plan. And so I don't want to spend too much time going into detail there. I'm happy to share at another meeting, but we have many, many metrics to look at what's working and maybe what's not. And we will be reporting on that annually as well.
Okay. And I could just Google local control accountability and then it'll come up.
Yes, if you look up, it's a local control accountability plan. It's a plan that every Board of Education approves that has many details associated with monitoring student progress and budget that goes with it. So it's a complex document, but we'll be going through the process just like everyone else.
I have another question. Have you looked at the outcomes of MAP testing across the Corydon community schools to look at whether the progress of our youth is matching up or even ideally exceeding 0.25 of a year every 3 months?
I don't want to misstep and say the wrong thing about what the actual findings are. What I can tell you is that our students last year during COVID were able to earn many credits and were able to continue to move through their education. And so I don't have at my fingertips the MAP testing piece of it. We do find value in MAP testing, and we are working to build in more formative testing. So we actually purchased additional licenses through Edgenuity that gets down deeper into looking closely at student assessment and having frequent, what we call formative assessments that teachers can work with. So we're on the trail. I don't have the data today, but we know it's a priority.
And I just wanted to mention finally that the COVID project had the pleasure of talking to youth, and they felt really positive about Hillcrest.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Nice
That's good.
feedback.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Our teachers, they really brought it this year. I mean, not that they don't every year, but this year they did a phenomenal job. So thank you for saying that. Judith?
Yes. So do you have your mental health provider?
We are, I mean, we will be continuing probably to work with many different providers through our community school. We always have other partners, but we are working with an educational organization called Effective School Solutions that are already in some of our other districts in some capacity. So we don't have the contract done yet, but we are working closely with them. And they have very strong data to support, the goals that we're looking for the kids.
Great. Okay. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I guess I could go next. Thank you, Karen. I'm just wondering, given that, we're seeing a lot of districts are seeing like demographics kind of shift elsewhere. I'm just wondering, what are the conversations that are happening when it comes to, programming or services, or even, for example, Sequoia District, we have a lot of students that have dropped out due to, they had to help their families pay bills. So we're not seeing them attend community colleges or even transferring. So I'm just wondering, how, what is the conversation at the county school kind of look into that?
We've had conversations around this all year. So this is, for everyone on the call, this is not, necessarily just about our community school or our own school programs through the County Office of Education. As you mentioned, across the county, districts report, for lack of a better way of saying it, losing students. And to some degree, those students have not been found yet. So there's a lot of tracking that districts have done to try to find students. And we do believe that a fair amount of students moved out of the country, moved to other parts of the United States or, different areas. And so what we don't know is if some of those students will reappear. So that is an unknown is, are we going to have a subset of students that show up on the first day of school now that, schools are sort of more open going into the fall and say, well, we didn't have any school services last year. That is a possibility. And we've had conversations about how to serve those students. On the academic side of things right now, where, we've put forward some articles talking about this with our our partner districts. Our position is that, students should not be retained in general. It is considered a disadvantage, but it also means training teachers to teach up in what we call an accelerated way for students who have missed. So there's a lot of sort of educational lingo behind it, but it really means catch them up quickly and get them moving forward. And we all know there's going to be gaps. So we're talking about it. I don't think there's easy answers, but we're having discussions about it.
Got it. Thank you.
Anything else?
Thank you, Karen.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Appreciate the update and answering all those questions. Next
sure.
up, Behavioral Health and Recovery Services, Aurora.
Hello, everyone. So Services continue to be provided via telehealth and in person. Not a lot of change there. And just given the variants, we continue to fall under the health guidelines. So that will be our practice until something changes. The new item is that the inspector from the Title 15 audit that takes place every year has made the recommendation that there be courtside services, and given that BHRS oversees those mental health services, they'd like to see what the inspector is recommending is courtside outreach, meaning they'd like to see mental health along with correctional health and maybe our family partner providing some very brief assessments. So for instance, correctional health could check the youth's vitals, find out if there is a need for medication. Are they following up on any medical appointments? Do they need a medical appointment? Then they would move them on to the mental health clinician that would be there just to do also another, maybe a risk assessment, find out, if they are supposed to be on any psychotropic medication and are not, and how do we get them connected to the psychiatrist as well? Are they connected already to mental health services, and are they following through, or is there anything that we could support them around? So it's really just to triage to make sure that the youth is connected and getting some services, whether it's medical or some mental health. We'll also have our family partners so that in her role, she's talking with the parents to identify any needs, whether it's housing, food, insecurities, et cetera, and then giving the parents some proper resources as well. So as we know, oftentimes the youth, when they are detained, is when they are getting these services, but these would be for youth who are in the community and maybe are not getting the services because they're just not making those connections. So it's in the process. We, again, it was a recommendation that they'd like to see. And so BHRS, along with Correctional Health, will be meeting with our other partners to identify what this process, will look like. How do we streamline it, and how do we make it most effective? So we're in the very beginning stages of it. And so I'll just continue to report out as things develop. And that's all I have on my end. Any questions?
I just wanted to offer that I believe Santa Clara County has been doing courtside services or assessments for family needs. So they might be a connection for you. And then I'm just really excited to hear about that because I've thought about it in the past. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Aurora,
yes.
I'm not entirely familiar with what you mean by courtside. I might be able to I could make something up, but could you explain what exactly do you mean by courtside?
So any youth that may be, and we know it is different right now still because of COVID and a lot of the court reviews still taking place via Zoom. There are some youth that are coming in person for their court hearings. And so that youth would, again, this is part of our working process is to determine whether or not they'd be seen prior to going into the courtroom or after their court hearing. So a youth maybe in the community has to come up for a review, and so has to be on site at the juvenile hall, and then that's how we would make our connection with that young person.
Got it.
Does that make sense?
That's what it sounded like, but I just
Okay.
wanted to be sure.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, any other questions for Aurora? All right, I don't see Fong on here. Is there anybody else from HSA on the line? And Sharon, I know that you're here with us. Welcome. Sharon emailed me earlier and said that right now there is not an update for the DA's office. Does anybody have any questions for her?
Well, I'm just curious if there are any changes or increases in referrals to the DA's office, any indication of changes in types of or numbers of crimes being committed by juveniles? Is Sharon there?
She's here and she's on mute. She may be multitasking. I may have put her in a bad spot. So I can follow up with that question, Monroe,
Sure.
get you an answer.
Okay.
All right. Moving on, inspection update.
Hello. So inspection update. So as we all heard, the girls camp has already done, there's already been an inspection for the girls camp. Inspection for YSC is to be scheduled for sometime in August. I believe that's still in the works. And then we have Canyon Oaks, Monroe. Have you guys identified or have you guys confirmed?
Yes, last week, Susan and I did the inspection for Canyon Oaks for the facility, not for the school. So we have copious notes, which we will start processing into a draft report soon.
Awesome.
One thing though is we were not able to talk to any of the residents, and we may need to go back and have a conversation with at least a couple of them.
Okay, that'd be
Good
great.
point. And the director or the head of clinical services did a great job of giving us the tour and is very accessible and open to follow-up questions. So we still may be following up with her on other things as well.
Excellent. Thank you for that. And Melissa, any update on the schools inspections?
Schools were waiting until the school year restarts and the teachers get about 2 weeks with their students before we hit them.
Yeah, makes sense. Thank you, Melissa. And I know for YSC, we said, Joanna, correct me if I'm wrong, are we still in the works with YSC of confirming a date, or do we have?
We are. We had some, we had the date all aligned, and then there was a vacation on the county level. So we are all trying to make our schedules work, and we hope that we will be conducting our inspection in August.
Great. Well, thank you everyone for your hard work, and to be continued.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Sure.
Any questions on inspections?
Deborah, this is Roxana. Just wondering, even though we haven't done our executive summary for our team at the girls camp, I'm just wondering if next meeting, do we share about the inspection, or, do we talk about it now, or I'm just wondering.
We will put together our report and circulate it to the staff at camp next week, and then do our finalization of it. And we'll include it in the next meeting agenda, and we will report out on it next month.
Got it. Thank you.
Any other questions?
And this is Sharon from the DA's office. Sorry, I was driving and did not want to interrupt that so I could focus, but I do know that Monroe asked a question.
Monroe, would you repeat it?
Yeah, hi Sharon, just coming off mute. The question was, are you all seeing any changes in the types or volume of referrals on juvenile cases? So do you have any insights on whether there are any changes in, juvenile activity in the county?
I'm not seeing a distinct or noticing a distinct change in terms of types of cases that are coming in, but definitely have noticed a change in the volume of cases that are coming in. So the volume has significantly decreased. We're not, getting a lot of these cases. And I think in part it may be what Melanie referred to earlier, they're just diverting more cases so that it doesn't even get sent to the DA's office. But I haven't noticed anything in terms of any sort of pattern or trend as far as the kinds of cases that are heard.
And that decrease you're noting is over what time period?
Well, I've been at the DA's office supervising the juvenile branch since February. So it's within that time period. Yeah.
Okay, so that's recent.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Sharon. All right, we've got some reports that have, some projects that have wrapped up, and we've got some final reports. So we're going to start out with lessons learned from COVID-19 or during COVID-19.
All right, thank you. I'll begin with this. So our COVID-19 project consisted of, we worked for 6 months. We talked to 23 different people in all aspects of San Mateo County's juvenile justice system. And these included law enforcement agencies. We spoke with 7 different law enforcement agencies, the juvenile court and the justice partners, including the private defender program and the district attorney's office. We spoke with juvenile probation, juvenile hall staff, incarcerated youth, our education partners. And we also talked about the way our commission conducts business. The 7 agencies that we worked with or interviewed were the South San Francisco Police Department, Daly City Police, Hillsborough, Atherton, Redwood City, San Mateo, and the San Mateo County Sheriff's Office. The striking takeaway from our interviews with law enforcement was that even with the cite and release policies that were the COVID-related cite and release policies, they were not seeing an increase in juvenile crime, juvenile recidivism, which was really striking. And I don't know when we would have ever had an opportunity to get a real in-depth look at that. Under the circumstances, we were fortunate enough to do that. And I'm looking forward to when those statistics actually are available. All of our interviews are in the appendix section. Our report is 29 pages, and the law enforcement interviews, the summaries of those are in the back of the report. And Melissa's going to talk to you about the positive impacts of COVID-19, what came out of the COVID-19 that was positive. Melissa.
Thank you. First, I want to just start by saying there are many people in this room who we interviewed, and everybody was so gracious with their time and insights. And it was really exciting to hear that this horrible situation has created new opportunities and new ways of thinking. The ones that we wanted to highlight for you are that bookings have gone way down. And so previous to this, if a police officer brought a youth up to juvenile hall, the standard practice was to accept all the bookings. There was discretion before, but there's just a desire to be courteous to your professional associates, and just that was the way it was. And so now only the most severe bookings are happening for 707B offenses. So probation violations that don't affect, harm the community or harm to self. All of that is being handled outside of juvenile hall. The second, sorry, I have so many notes, I apologize. The second thing I wanted to mention is that Zoom has been a huge bonus to everybody. So in the courthouse, all the juvenile justice partners feel like it has made operations smoother, more efficient. There have been fewer continuances when it's heard for hearings. It's only being used for, it's only being used when all parties are in agreement, when the stakes are low, when it is for regular hearings and check-ins, and there's always the option in all situations to be heard in person in the courtroom by the judge. So this is an option to augment rather than a replacement. There's no legal obstacle to continuing this in the future, and I believe the justice partners would like to. Another part of Zoom is that visiting, because there wasn't in-person visiting, 2 sessions of Zoom were added every week for a half hour. And coming out of this, I'm super excited. Coming out of this, they're going to keep Zoom as part of family connectivity and also have in-person family visits and the phone calls. So the amount of family contact has gone up tremendously. And most families, even now when they can visit in person, they are choosing to use Zoom, which is great. And then the final thing, the commission has really benefited from Zoom. The fact that we have so many people in the room, the fact that it's been easier to recruit new members is testament to that. And I've talked to Judith Holber since we published our report. And going forward, as long as commissioners are present physically in a room in county center like we used to, there's no reason why we cannot continue to have the public attend and participate via Zoom, using chat features, etc. So I think that's wonderful news. We don't have to wait for the legislature to give us permission to extend this to our larger audience. The short other things is this really, COVID helped education get the resources and training that it has wanted and needed. And then the other thing is that because program services were taken out or went on Zoom, it's given an opportunity to the GS staff to innovate and also be trained. There's a new program called Why Try. And so they're able to do more of that, that type of service, provide those types of services to the youth. And I think it's exciting anytime capacity is built. That's my summary of great things. Are there questions? Oh, well, I guess we'll do questions at the end.
Yes, so Sathvik's going to talk to us about our youth interviews.
Great. So I'd say one of our favorite parts of the project is we had a chance to talk to 4 youth who are in YSC right now. And there were a lot of positives that came out of it. Well, we'd like to start by saying like all the youth felt safe at YSC, and all the youth told us that even if they don't always have the best days, they all feel like they have a trusted adult they can talk to, which meant that there were a lot of positives that the youth shared about both their taking pride in their education and wanting to turn their lives around. One thing we did run into that we saw as a problem was related to the food. So we did meet with probation related to this, but a lot of youth expressed considerable distress, both with the quality of the food and the portion size. I think this resulted from a change in policy at YSC, where instead of making the food on site, it was brought in from the Adult McGuire Correctional Facility. So in that regard, a lot of youth had complaints about the food. So they did report that they were hungry and that they would like better portion sizes. So we are working with probation to try to address some of these changes and fix it. Another area of slight concern that we did have is that a lot of youth, especially the male youth we talked about, had concerns about the COVID vaccine and refused to take it. So 3 out of the 4 youth we talked to were not vaccinated and overall lacked knowledge about the COVID-19 or had a general mistrust of the vaccine. But other than that, they all did report that they were on track with their academics. Many of them felt that they were doing more work and catching up on their education while inside the hall than outside of the hall. And we even met a couple of youth who were going ahead and beyond and wanting to read psychology textbooks and pursue their educational studies as far as they could take them. So I don't know if there's anything else I left out, but I think that's basically it.
That's great. And so we just wanted to give a high overview. We have here our recommendations, and the report is already up on our website, which is under the probation department on the county webpage. So we'd like to open it up now to questions to our commissioners and use the most of our time here with you to talk about the things that we've learned and the things that we've presented to you.
Anna, there was a question in the chat room from Kate, if you could address that one first.
And the question, Johanna, is Kate is interested in why EPA is not on the list, given that youth are so well represented in the facility.
Thank you very much. I'm moderating the meeting. I'm doing my share screen at the same time. If I miss a chat, please forgive me.
No.
Okay, so we attempted numerous times over a long period of time to contact East Palo Alto Police Department, and unfortunately they were non-responsive. We're hopeful that in the future Now that we're trying to build partnerships, that that will change, but it wasn't from a lack of trying to include them.
Thank you.
Welcome. Susan, are you next?
Yes, thank you, Joanna. About the food situation, we were always assured that a nutritionist had reviewed and approved what they were feeding the youth at the hall. And it seems to me that if it's coming from the adult jail, that it's not geared toward youth at all. So is the nutritionist doing anything about commenting, reviewing what these kids are being fed?
Thank you so much for that question, Susan. So actually, that was one of our concerns as well. And we met with Jihan, and she went over extensively. She showed us the menus that the kids are eating, and she showed us the system. There's actually, I believe it's called NutriKids. It's a software program that the federal government uses to create their meals, their school lunch program meals. And so that is what the dietitian or food service person at the McGuire jail uses to make our youth meals at our facility. They're not the same meals that the adults are receiving. So that is what they're using. Although there can be some adjustments made to like having food that's more culturally responsive. Like, the kids if we have 65% of our kids are Hispanic, then maybe we should be using more, serving more Mexican food or using Mexican spices. And that's another thing that we spoke about. But yes, they do have a different menu than the adults.
I think one of the issues, Susan, is that the food is not very appetizing right now.
It never has been.
Well, yes, it's, and so when a youth does not decide to eat the canned peaches, there's no second helpings of the pasta or the protein on the plate. And then also just, there was a kind of an unlimited availability of calories when it was family style, because you could go back if you were hungry, and with a single portion, even if that portion is correct, you're going to run out of calories if you don't eat it all, or you may feel hungry afterwards. Anyway,
I had one other question. On page 12, it says that schools loan students laptops because of the pandemic. However, this will not continue going forward. Does that mean they're going to take the Chromebooks that they gave them back? And what would they do with them? It seems to me that the students are going to continue to need the Chromebooks, whether they're in school or not, whether they're going to class in person or not. Do you know anything about that? Or
providing technology was a response to COVID, and there's no provision or planning going forward to be providing technology unless the school was doing it before COVID, which some schools were. And so that is why that's a concern that we have.
I think we need to make sure that we let it be known that we would want the schools to continue to let those students have those Chromebooks, because otherwise they're going to lag behind the students whose families can afford to provide them themselves.
I guess I would just add that we do have a plan for educational technology for all the youth. So maybe, I'm not sure how that sort of translates in all of this, but we definitely have, we do take things back to update, look at, refresh, all of that. And then we reallocate in the fall. So that's standard practice in schools.
And Karen, are you talking only about court and community, or are we talking about all school districts?
Well, court and community for sure. I would say most school districts at this point have purchased such large volume of technology that students should be having access at every juncture. So whether that's in the classroom or to take home, I mean, we've got all of that technology available now. So I I can't say for sure every student, every single place, but it's part now of all of our future, in education. So I believe that everyone will have very robust programs for technology for youth across our county.
I mean, I'm worried about when Comcast stops giving free internet, and et cetera, it's highlighted the problems of access.
There, at least for now, there continues to be multiple programs available to help with that. And we continue to get funding for all of this. A lot of federal money has come into the school districts recently, and I'm sure a lot of that will be spent toward continuing to have robust technology and Wi-Fi available for students.
Victor, I see your hand up.
Thank you, Johanna, Savik, and Melissa. That was a fantastic presentation. I can tell you all did some incredible and diligent work. So I just want to give DAPS first. I love the recommendations. I am definitely a big fan of the YSC bookings one, and of course of Zoom, but all of them are fantastic. And then the only thing I wanted to say was, we are a commission, so I think we need to press a little bit on the EPA police department's lack of response and talk to a supervisor or whoever we would talk to just state that it's truly just unprofessional. I mean, we're the commission, and we're not just a bunch of individuals. I mean, we are sworn into office, you know what I mean? So I think we can actually push a little bit without being too forceful, but enough just to say that, we would have liked some sort of response back, considering the work that we're doing, and obviously that it would benefit the community that they are also sworn in to protect and serve. So I'm off my soapbox. That's it.
Thank you, Victor. Just for some background, overall, even the city council members have not been responsive to commissions in the past. Like my husband is a mental health commissioner, and during mental health month, he was trying to reach them. So there may be something systemic happening there. I don't know, there might be vacations, they might be short staffed, I don't know, but it seems to be not just with the police department, but overall in East Palo Alto. That's been our experience over the last few months.
For what it's worth, the
Great, and I wasn't. It was just. No, I was just going to say I wasn't trying to say that it was only the East Police. I mean, the East Palo Alto Department Police Office, the East Palo Alto Police Department that was being non-responsive. I don't know. Like you just mentioned, apparently there's other things happening in East Palo Alto, but I just wanted to focus more on the issue that. Whether or not we are a commission and how much weight does that really have, we still are entrusted to do a duty, and so are they. And, to get a response, whether it's no, we're not going to participate in this, or yes, we are, I don't think that's a lot to ask. And I don't think it's really too much for us to go to a city council member or board of supervisor member and just say, hey, this wasn't really professional. But that's just my take on it.
I agree completely, because we need to be in partnership with them, because so many of our kids are coming from that community.
Correct.
For what it's worth, the outreach that Paul and I have been doing with elected officials, through that we did make contact with one of the city council members in East Palo Alto. So we are in sort of email contact with someone there, and maybe we can help out. So Johanna, if we can follow up on if you want. While I have the mic, I also wanted to commend you guys for a great report. There was clearly you put a lot of effort in and collected a lot of information, and I read all 29 pages of your report and enjoyed it. Sorry, trying to get a cat out of the way here. Just one comment. The slides you have here are helpful. One of the things that I was kind of looking for in the report was one neat summary of all the recommendations like you have here. So are you also posting these slides I don't know, on the website or wherever the report is?
We certainly can. We could make it part of next month's packet.
Yeah, I think it would be useful to put it in the packet, but also like if you're putting this out on the JJDPC website, to have this kind of short summary as well. Just a suggestion.
Thank you, Myra.
One of the things that I'd like to change the phrasing on a little bit is on educational technology. I was part of that recommendation. I'm wondering, and maybe Jehan can address this, whether should the school be on Zoom? Could the youth who are in quarantine and not yet attending school go to school via Zoom with their classmates rather than waiting to, enter the classroom?
Victor, I'm sorry, Melissa, I'm not sure if Jehan is on. Can you see, is Jehan?
I'm sorry, repeat. I
Okay.
transferred over to my phone.
No problem, Jehan. It's Melissa Wilson, and I was saying that one of the recommendations that we published could be phrased a different way, and that is when a youth comes in and is still in quarantine, if the rest of the youth are in school but doing so via Zoom, could that new quarantined youth get into begin school sooner rather than doing education packets that aren't part of the curriculum that all the other youth are pursuing? Is it possible for them in quarantine to go to real school?
Not until they actually get off of the 14-day quarantine. We have had a few cases, as you guys know, where youth have become positive on their second test, and we don't want to have any exposure, to the rest of the staff, the other youth, or the school officials.
Let me. I think I didn't phrase that clearly. Could they attend via computer the regular school day if the regular school day is on Zoom for all youth at Hillcrest at the time?
So I believe what they were doing, I'm not sure and what the school is going to decide come the fall in August. Once they pass their 13-day period, I do know that for a period of time, the youth were still giving Chromebooks for their education. I'm not sure if that's changed or not.
So has there ever been a question about whether the youth could get those Chromebooks immediately and start school immediately while in quarantine?
I don't think that was ever really brought up. I think the school, just because they do send people over to work with the students, I think that they wanted to make sure that the 72 hours passed first.
Oh, so in terms of their exposure to a potentially infected youth.
Well, not just their exposure, but for everybody. So any youth within their first 72 hours, they're on more of a full quarantine. When they do come out for any type of programming, if they have to, they are strictly by themselves. And so we do adhere to that strict 72-hour timeline. And then after that, they're all programmed kind of within a bubble, and they're able to come out and have school.
Oh, so they are, what does have school mean in that case?
To my knowledge, they are using the Chromebooks.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I know earlier on, during the COVID period, we did have packets, but to my knowledge, I thought the school provided Chromebooks to students that were on the quarantine phase. And then for everybody else that has passed the 14 days, they physically go to the school department.
Okay, wonderful. We interviewed you early on, so things have changed.
Yes.
Forget that recommendation.
So that's been met. That's wonderful.
I think we need to move on. We've got 2 more final project reports to go forward with. I would like to mention that because this project was conducted over a period of time, some answers may have shifted over time, and I think it would be great, Jehan, if you and some of the commission could get together and discuss, what we can add to supplement the boys' food, kind of at a separate meeting. I did, in the update that Ron provided, he said he was still getting complaints this month about boys being hungry. So perhaps there's a way we can help out and would love to address that. So I'll reach out to you tomorrow.
Yes, that's fine. Sorry, there might be an echo. I had met with Joanna and some of her recommendations we've already implemented. So yeah, we can meet offline to talk about some of the changes we've already been working on.
Great, that would be wonderful. Thank you so much. All right, dashboard project. Tony, you want to take that one away? Tony and Armand?
Sorry, I was muted there. Let me start again. We've called it the final project here, but actually, as you recall, we've separated this into 2 phases. We'll be looking at monthly data first and then annual data in our second phase. Couple things to mention. There are 2 primary sources for monthly data, BSCC and the Probation Department. Now, BSCC has data that it lags by about a quarter. So for example, anything from BSCC, now we're just getting January, February, and March now. But all the probation data is current, and it's based on what we hear at our monthly meetings from Johanna and Melanie. So that's as background. Deborah, Victor, Austin, and I have been working on gathering the data, but we have a new star player on our team. That's Armand Khan Aurora, who's been doing all the technical work and is going to show us our first pass at this dashboard from Hawaii, where he is visiting at the moment. So I think, Armand, are you ready to take us through what we have?
Sure. I'm going to leave my camera off just to preserve audio quality. Can everyone see the dashboard?
Yes, thank you.
Awesome. Well, I think Tony, if you want to walk through some of the graphs in more detail, I think you have the better knowledge of the data.
Sure, and then Deborah and Victor and Austin, please join in with me. We have, I think, 8 charts here. And could you move that up a little bit? So yeah, that's great. Oops, if you could move it, yeah, there. So for each chart, we have the chart, as you see, and then you can click on definitions and the source of data in each case, so that you can look at each one in that way. So the first one is the average daily population broken down by pre and post disposition. So you look at totals and the percentage of pre and post over time. We're going to be showing about a year's worth of data on each of these charts so they don't get too small. In this particular one, we've also put in what we're calling an estimate, that the yellow bars are what probation is reporting on a specific date and is an indicator of what might be formally reported later for the average monthly population. So you can just look at trends there. The second chart shows mental health cases and youth receiving psychotropic meds over time in 2 bars. Can you just click on the definitions? Yeah. Okay, let's go down, scroll down a little bit. So this is a breakdown by gender. So that's pretty straightforward. Supervised probation is pretty straightforward. So we can take a look at this and let's see, Melanie reported a number today of 161. So we get a sense that that number continues to come down, which is good news. So we can look at this reported data relative to these charts on a monthly basis. Okay, the next couple charts show misdemeanors versus felonies for both male and female. in total. You see, get a sense of the percentage of each. And then this is a compilation of our last chart is of what Melanie has been reporting. Youth on diversion programs, or what we're calling, the informal supervision in the intake center. We have the 5 youth at DJJ, youth on AB 12, youth in placement, and then on EMP. So be looking at that on a monthly basis as well. Let's see, I was just looking at the numbers we got for July are not significantly different. We have no youth on placement, which is great, and insignificant changes in the other numbers. So those are the statistics that we have found to be available on an ongoing basis monthly. Deborah, or any comments? Victor?
Our plan is to have these available on our website and possibly our social media platforms.
So what we'd like to do is have everybody take a look at these, look at the definitions, make sure they make sense to you. We'll make any adjustments, and then we will begin using these on a monthly basis.
I am so impressed.
Can you scroll back up to the top? Thank you. Sorry.
Desire.
I have a question. A couple questions. Should I go?
Yes.
Yeah, sorry. So one was, I think Deborah asked whether or not this was going to be on the website, and I didn't hear an answer, Tony, or I don't know, Deborah, whether you were making a statement. I wasn't sure. That was
It was kind of both. It was my assumption that we were going to post these. I know we're posting it on the website, and I think we're posting it on Instagram, but I have not had this discussion with Johanna. That's why it was a question/statement.
I'm sure there's a lot of material here that Johanna could turn into beautiful Instagram posts like she does.
It'll definitely be on the website. We're not quite sure how that will work, but it's some link will enable you to get to this point.
I'm sure Armand can advise us. The other question I have is, when we have monthly data and it goes back a year, that's great. What I'm wondering is, as months roll off in previous years, will there be some way to access them, right? Because we're going to keep recording month by month. So, it might be interesting to be able to scroll back to previous years and look at previous months or something like that. So I'm just wondering if you thought about how to do that.
We were going to put them into we'll have annual slides that go back 5 to 10 years, right? So after your 12 months, that information will slide into the annual numbers.
Right, but the annual will show full year's worth of data, right? Or full year averages?
Correct. This is just personal opinion that after 12 months, the changes are less significant. Something that happened 16 months ago, the change from them to today is less significant than the last 12 months. Right?
True,
At some point, you
true.
need to
Yeah,
do a
it would
call
probably
up.
be used less often. It's just kind of, I noticed
the data will be available because we're not erasing any data. We're adding on to it for the charts. We're just on the chart only showing the rolling 12 months. So yes, if anybody wanted to look back, say what happened 2 years ago.
then we could ask for it, but it wouldn't necessarily be like on a chart on the website.
Correct.
Yeah.
We could easily access the information.
Yeah.
What we tried to use as a model here is a wonderful dashboard, or it's more than a dashboard. It's a lot of detail that there is for the education statistics in San Mateo County. They also have a way to click on not only source and definition, but the actual numbers, the data behind it. But that's really beyond our technical capabilities to keep current without Armand being always present. So somehow we'll be able to have data available, but it won't be an easy click on from this.
Right.
Thank you, Tony. So I'll take us.
While I have the mic, I would just say, great job. This is really cool. I remember going to the first couple of meetings on this and having to bail out because of other things. And I'm so impressed with what you guys have come up with.
Great. Thank
Thank
you.
you, Monroe. Southwick has had his hand up for a considerable amount of time.
Oh, yeah, no worries. But I just had a question. Is all this data publicly available anywhere else, or?
It's all publicly available on the BSCC website. For that data, probation data is not available other than as reported at our meetings, as far as we know.
Okay, so I just had a quick question, because this is actually something that they sometimes talk about school districts when publishing data online, is that even the Department of Education, for certain data, if it's less than like 5 people, like the count is less than 5, they'll choose not to publish it online because it would be a privacy violation. So I was wondering, because I saw like some of the stuff like on the bottom of the screen, the counts were so insignificant that I was just curious, is it worth publishing it online? Because just by looking at that data, like if you know like, oh, someone is placement, you could identify who that youth was. So I was wondering if publishing it to the public is necessarily the best solution, if it could risk like a privacy violation for someone.
I don't think it's a privacy issue because the information we get is already aggregated. We have no way of tying that information to an individual, and neither would the public.
Okay.
And it's already public on the BSCC website.
Yeah, and right, just as a follow-up point, this information is public, but it was very tedious to go through, and what you're seeing now is this beautiful display organized, but it would not be as easy for you to get this data if you tried to get it. You'd have to do a little searching. I mean, it's there, but it was that was part of the work is collecting it and then obviously being able to present it this way. I did just want to make one point in regards to the mental health cases. As you know, as me as a social worker, I'm always kind of pushing that angle. This is only a snapshot of what it is on the 15th of every month. This is not like what it could be on different days, but that's the only data they had. We tried to get more data, but unfortunately we were not able to. So this is art. Get more about exactly, what it is day per day instead of the 15th of every month.
So what data is missing and how are you going to get that?
We have gotten as much as we can, Melissa, on a monthly basis. So you're seeing what we can get. As you know, we started out with a very, very long wish list. And it was just not feasible to get that data on an ongoing basis in any easy fashion.
There is also other information like the breakdown of ethnicity and other things that we can get annually. We just can't get monthly. So when we get to the annual, putting together the annual charts, it won't just be a recreation of these. It will also include new information.
There was a question in the chat about ethnicity, and I can't remember, maybe Tony, Deborah, you can help me. Was it that there wasn't a lot of data on ethnicity, or we just
It's only
found that it
available
wasn't?
annually.
Oh, that's right. Okay. I knew it was something, yeah.
What data exactly did we want that we couldn't get per se? Is it just the stuff like daily or something?
No, it was monthly. We didn't ask for anything more frequently than monthly, but it was just a lot of breakdown on ethnicity. It was county or city of residence. It was, I'm not thinking of anything else, but we did have a lot.
Well, in the grand scheme of things, we had great aspirations to include both education and police data, which we quickly determined was beyond the scope of this initial project, and gathering that information from multiple sources was going to be difficult. So we started with this nugget, and we may, after we do the annual, return back and get some of the other information. But this was a good starting place for us.
In all honesty, we found through looking at the BSCC site that other counties report a lot more data than San Mateo County does. So if you were representing a different county in the state, it has all the counties in the state. There was a lot more breakdown of data, but.
Yeah, and I think I misspoke too. What I meant, I didn't mean daily per se. What I meant is that we only, that graph only shows the 15th of every month. So it's not an accurate total of the entire month. So it's just showing what the number is on the 15th of each month. That's all it's showing. And I mean, it's something, and it's a start, and you gotta, the 1,000-mile journey begins with the first step. So this is the first step, and we'll go from there. But that was the only point that I was trying to make. And Melissa, to your question, we did try other avenues to get more data, but it wasn't feasible at this time. So this is what we have, and we're proud of it, and we'll go from there.
All right, thank you, Armand, for showing us as we need to get on to the after-school programs.
Okay. We'd also like to do a little screen sharing on that. And Amaya, can you share your screen with us?
No, I think I need the permission.
So I'm just go ahead and switching from the last screen share to the next screen
Okay.
share. So I'm
Well,
gonna
let me
give you-
just, I'll still, while you're setting that up, I'll just get us started. We sent out a lot of material in the packet. I hope you got a chance to look at it. It's detailed information on our findings. It was the actual catalog we did, and it was an analysis of all the programs that are available at within various school districts. Today, though, now we're just going to summarize the key findings, and then we're going to follow up with a full written report in September. So we can expect that later on. So let me just take a second and talk a little bit about our background, and then turn it over to Amaya Nori to tell us about some charts, and Karen Huber-Levy to take us through the findings. So Amaya, if you could do the next chart or next slide. Okay, so if you remember when we did our strategy for the first time about 1.5 years ago, we had 3 key aspirations for San Mateo County that were, an integral part of that strategy. And this is one, that all elementary and middle school children in underserved neighborhoods in San Mateo County have convenient, affordable access to programs that engage and support them and provide them their needed services. And this is the aspiration then that drove our project over the last few months. So if you go to the next chart, next slide. So specifically, what we set out to do was to understand the structure of the after-school programs in the state as a whole, because we find that there are just really significant resources and support for extended learning programs. And this is true not only for the academic features of the programs, but also increasing understanding of the social and emotional needs of the students, as we've already heard today. The second thing we set out to do was to identify any gaps in services that might exist in different communities, and if there are any barriers to using the services that did exist. So what we're trying to do here is to build our knowledge base and learn enough so we're in a position then to advocate for filling any unmet needs that we found. So to do that, this is the process we used. We reviewed tons of websites, schools, school districts, all the providers. We looked at resources lists that Probation or HSA put out. We did extended research on the structure of extended learning. We wanted to make sure we understood the legislation and the funding that affected these programs. We conducted about 16 hours of interviews, or 16 different interviews, many hours of them, as a matter of fact. And in the Appendix A of your document, you'll see all the people we talked to. It included quite a range of viewpoints and experiences, and we appreciated that. We also attended a number of meetings. Probably the most significant of those were Thrive Alliance, who has a children's and educational peer learning group, and that provided lots of resources and contacts that were invaluable throughout all of this. So with that, we created a catalog of all the providers and did an analysis of programs by the school district. So let me ask Amaya to, in case, we're hoping you read through all that, that was in the material, but in case you were not able to, Amaya can tell us a little bit about what you should look for when you do look through that material.
Yeah, so basically to summarize what's in the catalog is it has all of the after school programs for youth in our target cities. It's organized alphabetically and it includes the location as well as the services provided for each of these programs. And it has a lot of key information that you should definitely check out. And we also created a program or provider by school district document that basically has every school in our target cities, details about the programs that are on those school sites, as well as programs that are available provided by the community that are not on those school sites. And it has more information about like the times that they operate and the cost. And I'll pass it on to Karen for the key findings.
Thank you, Amaya. So as Amaya walked you through the data that we compiled, we found it was so useful to sort the information and organize it by district. And what we thought we were looking for were obvious gaps. And what we found, the good news, is that we found that all of the areas that we looked at have some form of after-school program framework in place. The challenge was that as we sorted this information by district and looked at it, we grew to understand that they vary very greatly in quantity and the depth of program. And each of the areas had a very unique framework and a unique ecosystem, we called it, of community resources that were available to it, the historical relationships that were in place that were comfortable and may have carried on for years, the funding that was available to support these. And we were able to see that the range of providers that operated across our county and in these particular areas varied, but clearly certain CBOs were very, very key. Boys and Girls Clubs and YMCA provided services across all of the areas, and they were very strong supporters with the school districts. Parks and Rec, also very key vital sources of programs and facilities. We found that the county were also very active through the Big Lift and through supporting other programs. School districts, in some cases, in San Mateo, for instance, annex childcare was provided directly by the school district. In South San Francisco, they provided an extended daycare activities for schools. It was just very interesting for us to see, though, that the CBOs and the city resources were such a huge focus. And cities provide a lot of resources through Parks and Rec, but also by supporting other programs through Police Activities League, Sheriff Activity League, and supporting local partnerships. Like in Daly City, they support a Daly City After Schools Activities Partnership. So very interesting for us to learn all of this. So they're not obvious answers leaping out at us, but understanding the very kind of complex interaction of different stakeholders that provide after-school programs. But overall, what we did see was there were unmet needs in all of the areas that we looked for. And we saw evidence of this through the fact that many of the application processes were lotteries. And the result was there were wait lists for many programs. We also discovered through our interviews with experts that there are many barriers to use that were obvious. Families had issues with transportation. Even CBOs had issues with transportation in that they couldn't hire shuttle drivers as easily as they once could because they're all working for tech companies now. There are program costs that are insurmountable for some families, or they may not even come forward to look for programs because they assume that the program costs are insurmountable for them. And there's a lack of information, whether that in some cases costs are nominal. In some cases, there are financial assistance programs available or scholarships. There's also just a lack of information about programs being available at all. And some families also had concerns with safety, clearly starting with the pandemic and continuing now, whether it's safe to send their children to group activities, and also concerns we heard about immigration status. And even though we were assured by CBOs that they do not use any information for any immigration related purpose. There's still some insecurity around giving addresses and contact numbers and home information, which is required for emergency notification. We also noted that the programs themselves, we heard, were limited by the inability to hire appropriate numbers of staff. People are just not available or not willing to work for the fairly low salaries that are being paid, and limitation of finding facilities and paying for those facilities, where sometimes facilities were provided for free, then a cost was associated with them and programs ceased to operate. And even when there's funding available, sometimes the funding cycles, the budget cycles are prohibitive in terms of planning for the future. If it's annual funding and they have to apply every year, they can only plan for each year. There's also an issue of whether people are taking advantage of the full funding, of whether each of the districts are taking advantage of all the funding available. Amia, can you shift to the next slide, please? We also made some further observations, which is that school districts are so important. They're such an important link to the community. Even if they don't offer the program directly, they are the front line to communicate to families. They also provide a lot of space for on-site programs. And the interesting point that was made to us as well is that they operate very, very independently. They are very diverse in the way they operate and have unique ways of approaching after-school programming. Superintendent McGee herself commented in one of the meetings that we attended that they operate as if they have moats around them. So she reflected on this, and we moved to the next observation that we have, which is that because of that, we feel that there's some opportunities for greater collaboration among the school districts. They could be sharing resources, perhaps at least sharing best practices and benchmarking. And we also heard that through the pandemic, it was an amazing opportunity to see how CBOs and school districts and other providers could in fact step up and collaborate very effectively. They were forced to pivot quickly when the pandemic hit and put in place programs to support distance learning in communities that otherwise would have been in real trouble because they didn't have internet at home and didn't have a safe place to do the school. The kids didn't have a place to do the schoolwork and get meals and be supervised. So an amazing amount of collaboration was able to happen during this time period, which really, I think, highlighted to everyone involved, all the stakeholders involved, that there are some real opportunities here for perhaps eventually more of a collective impact collaboration across the county. The last observation that we wanted to share is that the funding process is quite complex, and there look to be some opportunities to perhaps make it easier and more make sure that the money is getting to the right place. CBOs really perform such an amazing role in providing after-school programming, but they do not have a place at the table for receiving funds from the state or federal. They receive their funds through their cooperation with the districts. So that's good. They form close relationships with the districts, but they have to react. They don't have an opportunity to be as innovative and as proactive as they'd like to be, because they need to react to budgetary plans and constraints that are imposed on them by this format. Also wanted to share that it's very exciting. There's a lot of funding being put in place by our state through the new budget this year. And there's this new California Extended Learning Opportunities Program, which has injected $1.7 billion to be provided to disadvantaged communities through the existing funding mechanisms. And one of the areas that we'll be looking at is how to advocate in terms of making sure that the districts that could most benefit from this funding are in a great position to get this funding through the grant process. Could you shift to the next slide, Amia? So our next step, as Tony shared with you earlier, is we will update the program catalog and the summary by district. It's been kind of a moving target because we've been through a pandemic and a lot of websites weren't being updated. So we've had to kind of scramble a little bit to make sure that we talked to a lot of people and got information that wasn't available online. Now more information is being put online and put into place as the districts and the CBOs are able to plan with the new opened ability to do more in-person programming. So we'll be making sure that we're up to date on all of that, and we'll complete our analysis based on that new data and our final report for you in September, as well as coming forward with our recommendations for our phase 2 of our project to put in place a plan for how we will advocate for filling the unmet needs. So thank you for your attention, and we'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
I don't have any questions because this was a really clear report, and you guys did, I think, a great job of, collecting comprehensive information. And I appreciate how clear the recommendations and the observations were. I really think you've laid out some good ideas here. I mean, I can kind of see what might be coming in terms of recommendations for advocacy, and seems like a great step towards the goal that we set out to, make sure that kids have these programs available to them. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, same here. This is Roxana. Thank you, team, for working on that and for just, taking the time to meet with a lot of elected officials as well, and also CBOs and, and advocates that know community programs and some of the issues that are happening that sometimes we might not know about. So super glad that you guys were able to put it all in this report. So yeah, thank you for all your hard work.
Yeah, thank you, team. That was a great report. As you can tell, I did not allow enough time for each of these 3 final project reviews. So are there any non-commissioners, any public comment on this before we move on? Hearing none, we will move on. I ask that for the other project teams who are not finalizing any reports to just keep your report outs as short and brief as possible with only the key information. So that will leave us starting off with the Youth Commission.
So we haven't started our meetings yet.
Yes.
Maya, sorry to interrupt you, but I think you skipped a section of the agenda.
What did I skip?
You went
project
to the
plan
last
updates.
part, right? And we want to.
I did. May I finish up and I'll go back?
Okay. I mean,
too far.
it's not really important. We
Monroe.
haven't started our meetings yet. So yeah, that was it.
Great. All right, then back to the projects. School attendance.
Yes,
Susan.
we were supposed to hear from David Copperwood from the state, who runs the state SARB, but he had a problem, so we rescheduled that for August 6th at 3:30. And I think if someone else wants to come, as long as we don't have a quorum, I'd be happy to share it with other people if they would like to attend. In terms of the San Mateo County diversion programs, we're still moving ahead with our police departments. And funny that Johanna should say that there was a problem getting through to East Palo Alto. I've called them numerous times and have not gotten a call back yet. So we're getting close to getting all of the interviews done. And I'm finding that it's useful when we're talking with them to tell them about the peer court program, our project, and also to tell them about the parent handbooks. And they are all interested in knowing about that. And I think the more we can get people to understand all the things that we're doing, the more we'll be able to do cooperative efforts. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Susan. Communicate with elected officials.
Yeah, I'll give a quick update on both of the next 2 projects that that Paul and I are working on. And Paul, jump in if I leave anything out. But short the short and sweet is that there isn't very much new news on either project, basically due to vacations, or other business that's going on that is distracting. So there have been no new meetings with elected officials in the last month. And then there has been some communication with supervisors on the alternatives to incarceration project, but that also has not made a lot of progress because of some vacations that have prevented people from getting together and talking, so that we can kind of move on to next steps with that project. So no new news really. Paul, did I miss anything?
You got it. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Outreach to underserved youth and families. I do not have an update. Johanna, do you have one?
No, I'm just meeting with the regular groups that I meet with, and I've been posting on social media, and I've been sharing our reports and whatnot. So this is kind of a combined outreach update, social media, police update, all in one. So I've been just distributing all of that, building our following, and attending my normal meetings, and just collaborating with the police departments.
Wonderful, thank you. Pure Court.
Okay, I'll take it. Austin Willis is awesome. So if any of you have an opportunity to do a project with him in the future, I endorse. The project is so exciting and so exhausting, and we're making great progress. We've met with probation today, and yay. So you could say more. Our biggest worry, I think, is we're applying for foundation grants, but we really need the system partners to actually pay for the service so that the service can exist beyond 1 year's foundation grant. Anything else, Austin?
Tony has a question.
No, I didn't have any questions.
Oh, your hand's up.
Oh, I don't see it under.
I think that was a reaction, maybe an applause.
Anyway, great work, everybody. No questions.
Thanks, Tony. All right, we more or less got back on time. Thank you, commissioners, for speeding through those. So now we can get back to legislation update. Karen, Paul.
Hi, I'll just jump in quickly, and Paul, please jump in as well if you have something different to add. I just looked at the legislation that we were following. I think everybody probably saw that I sent around a note about the Promise Act died, and I don't have any more information on that other than it's not proceeding. The other pieces of legislation that Ron had flagged for us as being of particular importance, there are two of the pieces which he personally felt very strong about, which was the right of appeal for transfer to adult court. That was AB 624. He was pretty confident that it will pass, and it is proceeding as if it will pass. So that's great. That's 624. Yeah, it's been re-referred to the Committee on Appropriations, but it started in Assembly. It's in Senate now, so that's good.
Can you just remind me what that is exactly?
Yeah, that is if a youth is transferred to adult court, it used to just proceed summarily without any review on merits and no recourse. And this would require them to have a mechanism in place to be able to review the order on its merits.
I see, to appeal it, got it.
Yeah, to appeal it. So that's very valuable. And apparently many states already have that mechanism in place. So California was seen to be a little bit behind on this. So that's very positive that that's proceeding. There was another act, AB 503, which is as a ward of the court, probation is limited to 6-month increments. And this is also proceeding. It started in Assembly, it's in Senate. It's been read the second time, ordered to the third reading. So that looks like it will proceed through, so that there'll be extensions of probation only with noticed hearings if a court determines it's in the youth's best interest. So it can't just be automatically continued. So that one's continuing. unfortunately, AB 1127, which was prohibiting prior juvenile adjudications from being considered prior serious or violent felony considered a prior serious or violent felony conviction for purposes of sentence enhancement, has died. It was ordered inactive. So that's unfortunate. What I can do, what might be helpful, I don't know if I do like a little written summary and just send it around. Would that be helpful? Because I think it's hard to keep track of the numbers. They don't mean that much. So maybe just like a little heading. Because there's another act that Fresh Lifelines for Youth had flagged as of interest for juvenile justice under decarceration, that Senate Bill 81 aims to provide clear guidance on how and when judges may apply sentence enhancements. This bill will improve fairness in sentencing and help ensure that penalties more closely reflect the circumstances of the crime. That has moved to Assembly. It's in Assembly now, and in July, it was placed on a suspension file. So I'm not sure what that means, but it did proceed to Assembly. So I don't know if it's running out of steam now, but I'll continue to watch that.
Any questions for Karen? Thank you, Karen.
I want to mention one other thing. I wanted to, in order to help keep everyone up to date a little bit better, I wanted to join the Pacific Center for Juvenile Justice. I think I might be getting the name slightly wrong, but anyway, Ron Reyes is very involved with them, and they're a tremendous resource for juvenile justice, but they took some time to consider my application and denied my application.
Oh no.
Because they feel that stakeholders with the Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention Commission include a broader range than those specifically advising on defendants, defense. So I just wanted to raise that in case any of you have any thoughts you want to pass to me that I could, but their answer was, sorry, if you want to become if you want to work exclusively in juvenile defense, we would then welcome you. But at this point, no. But we have Ron as a resource too. So presumably he can help us, but it's too bad because they're an amazing group. But
thank you for taking that step.
Onward.
Any questions for Karen? All right, with that, we'll move on to marketing. Marketing, membership. Melissa.
We have 5 commissioners who are going to come up to the end of their term in December. And so at the November meeting, there will be a recommended list of candidates for consideration by the commission. And to that end, there will be selection committee being assembled, and you can let me know, or Tony or Deborah, or if you'd like to be a part of that. The co-chairs are the ones who select nominating committees. And then also please start thinking about leadership roles for the future. So there's membership, there's administration, both vice chairs, and then we have currently co-chairs, and that could be 1 or more people. And you may self-submit, nominate, and nominate anyone else. Questions? Oh, maybe you'd like to know who the commissioners are? Those are, it's Suffolk, Doug, Rebecca, Deborah, and Victor is on a partial term. He's taking over the last few months of someone's term, and so he's also up for consideration. Any questions?
None of those are ending their 3rd term though, right? Like the rule is you can be reappointed twice after for 3 consecutive 4-year terms. Is that correct?
Yes, and no one is in that situation.
Okay.
Well, and it's worth noting that if you are on a partial term, that doesn't count towards your 3 terms. So Victor would be able to apply 3 more times.
Thank you. I just wanted to be clear on that because that's what was told to me when I was presented with that. So thank you for that clarification.
Okay, move on.
All right, she's done. Johanna, did you have any further announcements for marketing or police liaison? I know you did a nice job wrapping them all together. So we have a
that
few more minutes now.
That was it.
All right. Just want to double check.
I just wanted to comment that Johanna, your Instagram posts look beautiful, and also I'm excited about getting representatives from police departments in different parts of the county, and I hope you make progress on that.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you taking the time to let me know that. Thank you, Monroe.
All right, and community ambassadors, was anybody able to attend other commission meetings in the past month and want to update us on those? I know it's summer, we all have vacations, but. Right.
Deborah, I just did a quick update that Chelsea Bonini, who's on our conversation here today and on the Commission for Disabilities, and I attended a meeting with Tom Leon. Tom Leon is a community member who's participated in some of our meetings in the past and has volunteered to work on some vocational training opportunities in the county. And Chelsea and I listened to he has two volunteers helping him on this project. And we offered him some contacts for future references, and he will be getting back to us with some examples of models that work in San Mateo County and some opportunities that might present themselves for additional vocational training for youth. So that's coming up soon, and I'm delighted to work with another commissioner on, this really important goal here.
Tom's made some great progress. Yeah. All right, we actually do have a few minutes left, believe it or not. We have 4 minutes left. Are there any questions that didn't get answered in our rush through this last part? Yes, Melissa.
Is there anyone in attendance at this meeting who is interested in being on the commission? Please just put it in the chat and I can stay on afterwards if there is anyone, but I'm not aware of anybody here yet.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions?
I was just seeing that Austin has not been able to speak, and I think it's worth noting that the meeting this morning with Chief Keene went very well, and Chief Keene was very receptive to it. He actually said that because Austin had told him in arranging the meeting that he'd worked in Marin and in Santa Clara, so he called the chief probation officers in those two counties, who said that yes, this was a really good thing, a really good way of handling diversion. So I think we're proceeding in a very positive way and gaining a lot of allies as we go along.
Well done. And we're talking about the peer court, right, Susan?
Yes.
Yeah. Great job.
Yeah, great job to Austin and the entire team. Right, anything else? One last time. Going once, going twice. This meeting has come to its conclusion. Thank you all for joining us.
Thanks.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.